Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that may have spent too much of its life remembering it's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
That was actually kind of deep, Aaron. Spend too much of our life remembering.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and I believe he's guided by law, not fear. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
You've never been more wrong. Ahoy!
Each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He never said goodbye. He just said, see you down the road. It's Juan Fernandez Paris, ladies and gentlemen.
That was brilliant, I have to say.
Listen. We are pleased as punch, as the kids say. The kids don't say that. That you are back with us, and it's good to see your smiling face again. How are things in Puerto Rico, where there's not a foot of snow on the ground?
I don't want to say, because I don't want to have all the winter hate come my way. Let's just say that it's not cold, people. It's not cold.
I'm sure it's not.
No, we're doing good. I mean, my folks who are plus 65 were vaccinated this week, so I'm happy regardless. So we're making progress on that front. Movie theaters are still chugging, and we're making it work with what's happening. So we're good.
Yeah, it's been so long that it's one of those things where you almost hesitate to see that hope and that light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. But I think we're to the place with more and more vaccines, and you look at the graph and the way it's coming down right now, and you're just like, I think that thing I'm sensing is hope. I think that thing that's creeping up on me is a little bit. I mean, I'm sure there are people from Puerto Rico watching now, going like, there are issues, but I mean, there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. If not light. We're just, if it's not a light, we've got some flashlights so we can, make it through the tunnel at least. Fair enough.
Here in the Ozarks, it's a sultry 43 degrees right now. So
it is. It's nice. It got up into the 40s.
It did. Hey, so compared to what it has been, trust me, 43 is nice.
Yeah.
43 sounds pleasant.
and the sun comes out, and that's the thing that I think you forget a lot of times. In a lot of these winter states, especially up north, it'll be cold and the sun disappears. Like the sun goes away for, months on end. And at least here where we're at, even when it gets cold, the sun decides to come out. And that makes a big difference. Not only just like for melting off the snow and stuff, but also for spirits and vitamin D and all the wonderful things that the sun can provide.
I can see blue.
That's right. Yeah. We are excited. We are going to, of course, have a couple reviews of recent releases. I mean, it is award season, so recent releases is an interesting thing to say. We're going to talk about Nomadland. That's technically been out for a couple weeks, but just came out on Hulu this past weekend. And then we're also going to talk about the Mauritanian as well, and a couple of awards contenders, or at least awards wannabes. And we'll kind of give our opinions on those. Of course, we've got some buried treasure at the end as well. And for our best ever challenge this week, we're doing best ever Jodi Foster movies this week. So we are going to go into the filmography of Jodi and see what we come out with. So I'm excited to get into all that stuff. But we're going to kick it off with a review of Nomadland. A woman embarks on a journey through the American West after losing everything during the recession. Nomadland stars Frances McDormand and is Chloe Zhao's latest film. And I don't know if you got a chance to see The Writer, which I believe was her debut, but she's doing a thing here that should feel very familiar. She's taking real life people and giving them the opportunity to tell their stories while also adding some fictional elements of some characters over the top. The other name you might know is David Strathairn, who is in here as well as Dave. But other than that, it's really kind of an honoring of these people who consider themselves nomads. Curious what you guys thought. Andrew, we'll start with you. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I loved it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Very beautiful movie.
Juan, what about you? Like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or was it okay?
Loved it. I'm endlessly fascinated by, like, there's this notion of worry in Hollywood or the entertainment, sort of like you got to reach the masses and that determines what a budget but like this is a very specific American story, but and the details of it is impressive. It sort of has the detail of a documentary and sort of the beauty of a poem, visually speaking. But it speaks to, it's very the more detailed it is, the more universal. I thought the story was, because it is very specific to sort of finding your way and your community and all these sort of big questions that sort of leap out of this very, very specific journey for this character. So I'm amazed that sort of is able to fuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm totally with you guys. I love it as well. I am, it's hard to distinguish in that loved it category, like where you are. I might be on the lower side of loved it, but I truly loved, this movie. What's interesting for me is this is not typically the kind of movie I go, over the moon for. It's just the way I'm built, what I tend to enjoy. It is, it's very, I'm trying to think. It's a very purposeful pacing that's happening here that a lot of times, it just kind of is what it is. But of these kind of movies, I can't imagine you doing it any better than this. I felt so connected to what was going on in this journey, in this story, that I was never bored. I was never thinking of, let's get, when does stuff start blowing up? There's that. When does Thanos show up in Nomadland, guys?
He doesn't. Spoiler.
The post-credit scene.
Yeah. Damn it. See?
What's interesting, though, is the Chloe Zhao part of this. She's doing Eternals, coming up whenever that, decides to come out. And it just makes me wonder, like, what is Eternals? How is she going to meld her style, her eye into the MCU? I'm thrilled to find out. Like, I'm really...
I actually got to speak to her, and I knew that I wasn't going to get any details of what's happening with the actual characters in Eternals. Yeah. But I was able to ask, like, the jump. You did the Rider and you did Nomadland. Do you just have more tools to express yourself? And she pretty much answered to that. She pretty much took all her head of crews from Nomadland, and she says that now the difference is that each head of each department has an army behind them. So other than that, it'll be interesting. It's another way of storytelling on a bigger canvas. So which makes Eternals exciting. You know what I mean? Because I think you described it beautifully. It is purposeful. There's a purpose to every shot. I don't know if you guys watch or if you guys reviewed on the podcast Ammonites, which is we
did not. Mm-mm.
Well, that's one that, I'm not going to say watch it, but that's one where it feels like you're watching geography happen. Like there's no clear purpose to why the pace is the way it is. It just seems very, very leisurely getting to a point. And then when you get to that point, you're like, you could have gotten to that point a lot quicker than that. So there's none of that here. Like, it is a slow movie. But slow does not mean boring, I have to say.
Andrew's about to have a first cow sneeze here pretty soon, where he blurts out first cow as one that was like that for him. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Ammonite is a great example, and I have seen it. We just haven't talked about it here on the show.
I hated that movie with a passion.
I didn't hate it with a passion, but I will say it is the example of it is the example of this kind of movie that falls into all the traps of the reasons that sometimes I have a tough time getting on board with a movie with that kind of pacing. But this is completely different here. Do you guys have any connection to the material? Like, and when I say that, I mean, like, have you ever been like, man, I just want to get in an RV and just like, go live at national parks? Like, does that interest you at all? Like, on any level?
Well, whenever I just got out of high school, my cousins and I actually got a schoolie, which, if you don't know what that is, it's where you get a school bus and you convert it into like an RV sort of thing. It's very rugged, and bare bones. And we didn't have beds. We had hammocks that you take down the hammock, and then you have walking space. But when it's time to go to bed, you pull out the hammock, and that's where you sleep. And I can't tell you how many times I fell out of my hammock because I had the worst one out of all three of us. And we got to the point where I just had to take the ends and wrap it around me, and then kind of not zip ties, but latches, just so I'd be cocooned in it. I couldn't fall out. And we didn't go far. I mean, we'd go down to Table Rock Lake and Branson and places like that. But yeah, it's something I've always been fascinated with. And I'm going to diverge just a little bit because I think Juan said a word earlier, which I think is the perfect way to describe this movie, and that's poetic. I think this movie's very poetic. It's not only poetic in showing the landscape of America and how diverse it is, but also it's a poem, like a homage to the people who choose this nomadic lifestyle. It's like Frances McDormand is not really a character. Not to take away, that kind of sounds like a negative, but it's almost like she is a guide, taking us on this journey so we can meet these people too, which is beautiful. And you see that they live what a lot of people would consider a rough and hard life, but I think that it's just an acquired taste, like what we would find rough and gritty and difficult. They see the beauty in it, and I think that that's really what the movie's trying to say is you can find beauty anywhere if you look hard enough or if you know what to look for.
Juan, what about you? Do you ever have any desire to hop in an RV and sleep in a national park?
Well, I have to say, given that I was born and raised in an island you can go around in 3 hours, idea of the idea of getting on the road and endless. I actually did that. I've done road trips. I haven't been an actual nomad or anything like that, but that is the exploration of the landscape is very exotic to me and appealing. But I have to say, besides that, I do identify with the aspect of the character, because I know what you're saying in terms of that we get to meet, but I feel that the script poses an interesting question in terms of what do you need? What do you really what do you really need physically to live, and what do you need emotionally and spiritually, in a spiritual sense, to sort of get by? And I feel that that's what gives the movie its strength and the universal aspect of it, because I feel that everybody can sort of relate to facing those questions, like what I mean, and a lot of people are downsizing right now, so I don't know, I sort of connected with that aspect of it. But yeah, I don't know if I would be able to hack it in a car, but I mean, I do like the idea of being in a different place every single day, or every month moving to a different town.
Yeah, it's an interesting question for me to answer as well, because I do have a little bit of nostalgia for the idea of camping in a camper or an RV. My family would go, to, a campground for a week, and do those kind of things. We did travel in an RV for a family vacation one time. And there's something cool about it, nostalgia wise, that I relate to. I hate the out of doors. I think we invented air conditioning for a reason. I think we put roofs over our head for a reason. And so I'm not an outdoorsy person, but I also do connect to the idea of a new vista to look at every day. That's interesting to me. The idea of traveling in that way is fascinating to me. I think what connected me the most to this movie is I felt like it was saying the journey isn't defined by the destination, which is such a beautiful idea, even when you're not dealing with travel, which obviously they are. Their journey is not about where they're going. It's just about each day is its own thing. And each day, it's not now that I got to point B, now we've accomplished our journey. The journey is about the journey, and the way it relates that traveling idea to also almost a metaphorical idea of life is really beautiful to me. The idea that our life isn't necessarily, the journey of our life isn't about how it ends. It isn't about like, you know, what the end looks like. It's about what the days look like. And man, that really spoke to me on a deep emotional level, thematically and, you know, cinematography wise. Just like, I don't know. I feel like this is just it's such a full movie. It just feels so full of that beauty and kind of seeing the world in that way. So that's kind of the, you know, how it connected to me most in the movie. It's a really beautiful film.
It is. Also, the score for this movie is beautiful. The piano that, you know, plays throughout the background. Yeah, there are, I guess, performers, I guess you could say, like in her travels, she meets like, you know, performers. And it's really interesting to hear what they sing about or how, you know, the instruments they use and stuff like that. It does feel very nomadic. You know what this movie reminds me of? It actually reminds me a lot of Deborah Granick's movies, like Winter's Bone, you know, like where it's not unheard of to, you know, cast, you know, actual people instead of actors, you know, for a role. But I think Winter's Bone is definitely tonally and thematically different, but I think stylistically, I think it's very similar to this, to where you feel the authenticity of what you're watching. You're like, everything I'm seeing right now is genuine. Granted, you know, Winter's Bone, it's way more heavy and way more, you know, traumatic than this, but this has it's like if Deborah Granick were to direct Into the Wild, you know, is very much of like what this movie feels like. Yeah, you find out what's important to you and all our creature comforts and stuff like that. Are they really important? Or because I think when I'm watching this and she's meeting people, like there's a character named Linda who, whenever they like, you know, because they're nomads, they move on and they don't go in the same direction or go to the same destination. Like whenever they're saying goodbye, I felt a genuine pain of like, I am going to miss you so much. And that kind of thing you can't fake, you know, you can't act to that degree and have it feel that genuine. So that's a huge pro for me in this movie.
Nice. Any final thoughts, guys? I assume we would all recommend it. Even if you've got Hulu, you've already got access to it right now. So I'd recommend checking it out.
And you're going to be hearing about it because it's definitely a front runner. It's gotten Critics' Choice nominations, gotten Golden Globes nomination, and it's gonna make it to the Oscars. So if you look at award season and watching all the movies, like this is definitely one that you're going to have to like take a look at it.
And Frances is getting a lot of attention, of course, as she should. Yeah. And I think you're definitely going to be seeing it if you keep up with the award season for sure.
Yeah, but I think in directing and in cinematography, we're definitely going to get nominations in this one.
Yeah, it'll be in a few categories, definitely. So there you go, Nomadland on Hulu. You can check it out now, and we encourage you to do so. Yes. Let us move on to our second review. We're going to talk a little bit about the Mauritanian. A defense attorney, her associate, and a military prosecutor uncover a far-reaching conspiracy while investigating the case of a suspected 9/11 terrorist imprisoned at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for 6 years. The Mauritanian stars Jodi Foster and Shailene Woodley, Tahar Rahim, who you will also be hearing a lot about in award season, I believe. Benedict Cumberbatch is in there. My man Zachary Levi making an appearance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A little Shazam in there. So what did you guys think about the Mauritanian? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Juan, I will let you go first on this one. What did you think?
I don't know. I think you're throwing me to the deep end of the pool. Or I'm gonna, before I say, I have to say this is one of the ones that I truly, after I finished it, I was like, would I have had a different reaction to this if I had seen it in the theater? Like, I have to say. So I think I just liked it, and I have a feeling that if I would have seen it in a darkened theater, it would have been different. But I just liked it. I felt the direction in certain points. I felt like it was just too on the nose or hit me over the head with certain thematic aspects of it. But so that I sort of turned me off, I have to say.
Andrew, like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
It's interesting because I did see this in a darkened theater with,
Tell me!
a bare bones audience. Yeah. Once I understood what the movie was actually trying to talk about, and it's not what I thought it was going to be talking about, I was hooked, and I'm going to go with an adamant loved it. Really loved it. Really loved it.
You're making my case. You saw it in a theater and you really loved it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to make your case even further. I did not see this in a theater. Let me start by saying I think this is an incredibly important story to hear. I just want to say that before I say I am really close to hating this movie. I am on the low side of disliked it. I thought this was terrible. I couldn't connect to it. I was like, I thought the performances were bad almost all around, except for Tahar Rahim. I thought he was the only bright spot performance-wise. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was terrible. Like,
Agreed.
I came out of this movie going, wait, is it possible he can't act? Like, that's how bad he was in this. Was like, I went from like a Benedict Cumberbatch lover to being like, he may not be able to act. I had such a horrible experience with this movie. I was bored through most of it. I've seen this type of movie done so much better, so many times. I've seen these themes presented so much deeper, so much less pedantic, so much less preachy, so much less on the nose. I had a really bad time with this one. Now, again, to sandwich it with this very important thing, this is a crucial, important story for us to hear because it is based on a true, awful story, and we need to know that.
But I feel that the lack of depth of the things that we are complaining about is actually, it leans on this is an important story too much. I feel that's part of my problem. It's like, yes, it is true. But our commentary is on the filmmaking, not on the actual story, which is something that happens when people read negative reviews from critics. You know, you're not sort of trashing the importance of the story. It's just that the filmmaking that's pushing the story forward is lacking.
I was going to say, I still am going to say, because it is a common phrase, but sometimes you use an important story like this as a get out of jail free card. That is a weird phrase to use in a movie about somebody who literally could not get out of jail even though they hadn't done anything. But that can't be an excuse for kind of the things we're talking about. Now, having said all that and said kind of my piece, Andrew, I do want to hear what you saw.
Yeah, please.
You loved this movie, and so I do want. Like, I want you to convince me, like, where I'm wrong, because I love loving stuff. I don't like coming out of something feeling this way. So, like, what did I miss? Like, tell me how, like, where your feelings were.
Well, initially, whenever I was going into this movie, and during the beginning of the movie, I thought it was right that this is going to be a movie about whether or not this guy did it. Whether or not he was one of the, the planners of 9/11. And it transitioned... I think, for me, it transitioned well into realizing that's not what this movie's talking about. This movie is talking about how we treat those who we have such disdain for, or our legal system. How those in our legal system try to find loopholes to do horrifying things to people that we have imprisoned, especially in like Guantanamo Bay. And seeing towards the end, you see, I guess you could say, a reenactment or a point of view of what happened to Tahar Rahim's character. And it's one of the most traumatic, most difficult things to watch I've seen in a very, very long time. Because it's what supposedly happened in real life, and that it's something that the thought that a human could do this to somebody else is like unfathomable to me. I don't understand how it could be done.
A human or a system or both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, both. Yeah. That a system could be put in place, and that a system would not only allow allow this, but also encourage it. And then the actual perpetrators, I guess you could say, that they had the ability to go through with this and say, yeah, we did something right. What we were doing was just. And it's insane. Yes, I think that Tahar Rahim is definitely the standout in this movie. I don't understand the hate for Benedict Cumberbatch. Is it because he's trying to do a Foghorn Leghorn accent, or is it?
I mean, that's part of it. That part's terrible.
That doesn't bother me at all.
Well, I just, for me, it's a complete lack of embodying a character. It is complete. Like, at times I was like, this is like when I go to high school plays and they're like, putting on a performance, but you can tell that's not who they are, Like, it was really rough for me. And I will fully admit, this happens, and I think it happens to all of us. Once something pops in your brain, it just builds. Yeah. It just snowballs. Yeah. And very early on, I was like, oh, I think this is terrible. And then every time he was on screen, I was like, oh, yeah, he's terrible. So it just snowballed for me in that way, yeah.
It's I don't want to say look at me acting, but just by the fact of being Benedict in that role, you know what I mean? Like, it's a mixture of that. I don't know. Like, I don't know if we're being unfair to him or the way the character was written, but he just did not work for me.
Yeah, I wanted to know, is it because you familiarize Benedict Cumberbatch with having such a thick, pronounced British accent that whenever he's not, that it's kind of distracting? Because he's been Doctor Strange. Does that, whenever he's Doctor Strange, does that affect you at all? Or is it because this is something so... His British accent is so defined and recognizable that he went to the exact opposite end of the spectrum, for, like, the American version of a thick, pronounced accent that it's...
I honestly don't think it's just the accent. I really don't. Yeah. I don't think he embodies the character very well. I think it's beyond that.
Yeah, it was the construction of the character. It's not necessarily the accent. You know what I mean? Because it's like in 1917, it sort of does have the same effect. Like, suddenly, there's Benedict Cumberbatch, but in less time, that character is presented in a sort of fully formed, cohesive way. Like, this is more like flares of a character as opposed to an actual human being. That's how it's understood to me.
Yeah. In the chat, somebody's mentioning Daniel Craig in Knives Out, which I don't know how, like, clear a direct comparison that is, because he's doing kind of a Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah, he's doing
But I get that character. Like, I totally, like, it feels like he's a real person in that movie. I never felt once that Benedict Cumberbatch was a real person. I felt like it was Benedict Cumberbatch trying to act. And that's just, and again, it may have just clicked in my brain and then I couldn't unsee it. And that tends to happen. Jodie Foster is so usually great that I think she's just so... mediocre is probably too strong, but on just the north side of mediocre here, and so I wasn't blown away by her here either, and so I don't know. I was lost.
I didn't think anything of like negative of her performance, but that once she got that nomination, it's gonna like, really, what did you see in that? Like, it's just a forgettable Jodie Foster. I don't know.
Well, we're definitely going to see whenever we get to our sift sort, for Jodie Foster movies, not sift sort, but our best ever challenge. It's going to be obvious that she likes to pick heavy movies, like with something with weight to it. So I don't know if it's just whenever she's doing this movie that it's like a hat trick, like she knows what she's doing, she can easily jump into that character. But I thought she was great. If anybody in this movie I thought was forgettable, and I mean that not for their performance, but just the character didn't really add much to the movie, that's got to be Shailene Woodley's character. I don't think that character really did anything other than, just be there. I gotta say, I love Zachary Levi in this movie. He is really good.
Yeah, I actually thought he was good in this too.
Yeah,
he was certainly pulling off the characterization of his character, better than I was seeing in other people. Yeah. I fully admit this happens with movies and they just don't work for you.
It's happened to me. It's happened to all of us.
Snowballs. I get that. But I truly did, halfway, 3/4 through this, I was just like, this movie may be terrible, and that's not a fun place to be.
I'm so sorry, because this is one I'm like, not that I want to watch it again, because yes, this is a heavy movie. I don't know if we've said that this is a very heavy, like, rough movie to watch.
Terrible. It's so much trauma.
It's difficult to come out of a movie like this and for me to say I loved it, because it sounds like almost nihilistic, even, or what's the Schadenfreude or whatever it is, But I think that this
is sadistic, nature too, liking tough movies. Yeah.
But I think that it's an important message in this movie, and yes, I think that Tahir Rahim gives just high caliber performance. There's a scene where
he's really, really good. Yeah, he's the best thing about the movie for me.
Yeah. Whenever he's after he gives his I guess a testimony at the, it's just like, this movie had me crying. I was crying in this movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was never connected well enough to feel emotion during this movie, which really says something considering what's going on here. It really should move me. But yeah, it just didn't. There were times, this is so terrible. I should just shut up now. But there were times where I was getting like God's Not Dead vibes, like by how like preachy and pedantic it was. Like it was just like I don't know. It was just I flipped over into that thing of just like, oh, we're being very performative now, aren't we? And yeah, I couldn't unsee it. So
I understand that, and just because a movie is important doesn't mean that it can. I'm playing devil's advocate right now,
sure.
But just because a movie is important doesn't automatically mean that it's portrayed in a way that's easy to digest. That doesn't feel like it's just trying to like say, hey, this is important, so you should feel these emotions. We don't have to really, feed you, a good narrative. You should just you should love this movie because it's important. There's definitely been movies like that, and it sounds like this is how you guys feel about this one. That it's an important message, but it's there has to be a way. You have to make me care about these characters, and in a way that I do feel those genuine emotions. So
the way is his performance. I think that's why I do disagree with you, Aaron. I did not feel God is dead. Like that's why I meant like my way in was definitely his performance, and that's what carried me through, and that has some layers and depth, and he rises to the challenge, and but he's not able to elevate the material to where it needs to be, because that's just impossible. He's really truthful to the journey of the character in the performance of it, but that's why I wondered. Like, I wonder, why am I not? I mean, am I not responding? Am I not in the mood? Am I not responding? Is it because I'm not watching it in the movie theater? That's why truly, like, I wonder if it was just I was not in the setting to sort of appreciate the other things that maybe I thought that maybe were too subtle, that I did not catch them, or I was not in the wavelength of the movie, because that happens too. Like, there are certain movies that have a wavelength. And if you're not in that wavelength, and you're not, I mean, that doesn't mean the movie is poorly made. You know what I mean? I just felt a little bit more that I think I would have been able to catch the wavelength if I would have been in a darkened theater, as opposed to being in my home. You know what I mean? And watching a screener. So that's what I attribute to. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did not feel like, terrible filmmaking. I just thought it was.
I had those moments.
Yeah. I felt it was. I feel there was weak decisions by the director. I do agree with that, but it's not. I don't feel also like, because it could go the other way. Like we could say like this is an insult to a true story, and I feel like that's an exaggeration. It's not. It's not that. I have to say.
I get close to that, but I think you're right. I think that probably is an exaggeration. I think the only other thing I would say that may have impacted my experience was I felt like structurally I wasn't sure who I was supposed to be like driving alongside for this movie. Like the Tahir Rahim character is obviously the central emotional core of what the movie's trying to do, because it's his story that is so moving and important and that we're supposed to know. But I felt like we were almost supposed to follow the Stewart character, the Benedict Cumberbatch character, in his journey from being a team player to, questioning what he's doing. And like that I didn't feel like the movie was ever super clear to me on like where my heart was supposed to be, who my attention was supposed to be on. Structurally, I felt that it tumbled around a lot. And I don't know, because of that, I was also feeling a little discombobulated and hard to connect to what was going on, because I felt like we kept jumping from, who do you want your protagonist to be? Who's the protagonist of this movie? Is it the Jodie Foster character? Is it, and again, movies don't have to fall into A plus B equals C formulas for them to work. But in general, there's a reason you have a protagonist who changes through the movie, who you're supposed to connect to. And I think maybe it was supposed to be the Benedict Cumberbatch character, but it just wasn't the most interesting character journey for me to latch onto. So that could be part of it as well.
This movie, maybe this is why I love this so much. It reminded me a lot of Spotlight, in the sense that it doesn't matter whether or not you feel this Tahir Rahim character is guilty or not. It's a way to shine a light, and I thought that this movie did a really good job of like expressing like this is really what's going on in Guantanamo Bay. Kind of like Spotlighted. This is really what was going on, with these priests, So whenever I see a movie that's like shining a light on injustice, I immediately am immersed, and I'm like, yes, let's get all the dirt out there. Let's let the people know what is going on, so something can be done about it, or that a truth, a hidden truth, can be shown, to the world. Like, because once you hear stories, or at least I heard stories about what was going on in Guantanamo Bay, stuff like that. But I never knew it was to this extent. You hear horror stories about waterboarding and stuff like that, but once you see it, it makes it real, I guess. And it really hit me, and I got really, really emotional in this movie.
Yeah,
but I think I know where you're coming from, but I feel like you are primed. You said to yourself, you are primed to respond to stories that highlight injustice. You know what I mean? I feel that part of my critique of the filmmaking is that it's not like you feel it because you're primed for it, but the filmmaker did not make it visceral for all of us who. I mean, I'm also with you, but
sure.
It did not feel like a visceral experience. You know what I mean? Even though it's really hard. It is hard to watch. I don't know what the point would be. Like, where I'm talking before we get to where that part of it.
Yeah.
So, but I feel that the director sort of relies on that. That's what I mean. Like, it's just like it relies on that part of the audience that's just primed for that, and sort of doesn't. He leans. The direction leans in ways that are, I don't know, that are sort of interrupts. I'm not able to verbalize it very well. It's just like it doesn't gel. It just does. There are certain things that did not gel for me. It just I was able to always be distant from this movie, where the point of it is you're not meant to be distant. You're meant to be moved. So it's for me, it's hard to pinpoint why that was.
Yeah. Do you guys like Kevin MacDonald, the director? Like Last King of Scotland and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, it just, this one seems off from him, I have to say.
Andrew, I'm assuming it's a recommend for you?
Yeah. I've recommended this movie to a lot of people. But now that I hear you guys, I'm like, oh no. It's one of those things like, after you get done with the review and you start talking to people who have a different opinion, it's not that I feel like I was wrong, because you're never wrong in your opinion. It's like, this is a movie I love. That doesn't mean I'm wrong, or that you guys didn't like it. It doesn't mean you're wrong, but it makes me feel like, am I recommending it what I thought would be a movie. Like after coming into this, I was like, we're all gonna love this movie. We're all gonna think this is great. But now
surprise!
I'm questioning. Yeah, surprise! It's one of those things that just takes you back. Like, oh no, have I recommended this movie to a lot of people who are just gonna hate this movie? But yeah,
hopefully not.
That's the cinema, man.
You know what? I have a feeling that the majority of people will have a similar response to.
I think so.
To and I think us two are just being, jaded nitpickers. I don't know.
I will say I would not recommend this movie. Obviously, what instead I will do is recommend, if you missed it, which a lot of people did, that you see the same topic matter done in a movie that was underseen and underrated from last year's award season, which is The Report with Adam Driver. That covers some of the same ground. It's not as personal. It doesn't it's not as personal as with
it's more broad,
but it's a more broad look at the investigation into a lot of these things, and it's a really well done movie. So I guess I would recommend you check out The Report from last award season. I think it was came out November 2019, somewhere in that range. So there you go. That is the Mauritanian. Before we head on to our best ever challenge, another huge thank you to our SIF Pop members. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for supporting what goes on here. That happens to Patreon, by the way, patreon.com/SiftPop. If you want to go look it up, we do a weekly bonus show for our SIF Pop members where we talk about a topic. And this week we did our preliminary WandaVision review. Now, we are planning on doing a full WandaVision review once the season wraps up, but we decided to do a preliminary review with Juan for our SIF Pop members as we are through episode 7. So if you want to check that out, you can go to patreon.com/SIFPop, and thank you to all of our amazing SIF Pop members for providing the ability to continue to do this podcast and the website and all the fun stuff that we do. We do it for you, and we can do it because of you. Once again, you can check that out at patreon.com/SiftPop. All right, let's move on to the best ever challenge for the week. We're doing Jodie Foster movies, best ever Jodie Foster movies. And again, just so it's clear, we're doing the best ever movies that Jodie Foster has appeared in. So it's not like best ever Jodie performances, it's really best ever movies. And so we will go from number 5 to number 1. We will count them down. If you have one that is ranked higher than somebody else, feel free to yell Trump, and we will wait until it's yours to talk about it. Start off with number 5. Juan, kick us off. What's your number 5 Jodie Foster movie?
I have a feeling that I'm not gonna get trumped at all, until I get to the very top of this list. And I have to say, I was very malicious with this. I don't know. My number 5 is a movie called Stealing Home. It's a movie that came out in the late 80s, and it's definitely a feel good movie. And I interviewed Jodie Foster once, and I brought up this movie. And she looked at me like I was the biggest moron on the planet.
That reminds me.
It is a movie it's about the Mark Hamill character, who is an athlete that did not sort of come to his full potential. And he has to go home because somebody from the family dies. And it's sort of you were talking about Aaron earlier in the podcast. It's very much a nostalgia tinge look at youth and the people who influence you, and she's fantastic in it. So I don't know, it's a movie that I really, really, really like, that a lot of other people will consider probably disposable. But you were saying that reminds you of, I did not let you tell the story.
No, you're fine. It's just, I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people at the awards when you meet people, but when I took my mom to the awards, I think it was my second year, and and Christian Bale was there, and she ran into Christian Bale, and said, "I love you so much in Newsies and Swing Kids. Those are my favorite movies." And Christian Bale's response to her was, "Well, those aren't usually the movies that people mention." Thank you.
Well, at least he was kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was very kind. But
I got a huge eye roll from Miss Foster. So in vengeance, I am bringing this movie up in this podcast.
There you go. Go ahead.
I would be interested to see if anybody from the audience, like, it feels like throwing Rotten Tomatoes at me or something, or some lettuce. But I don't know. I do love this movie, I have to say.
Well, I'll go next, but I haven't seen Stealing Home. In general, when we prepare for these, I will do a little bit of a binge on the topic. And I picked Stealing Home was right there, and I almost, picked it for one to watch, and it just kind of missed that list. I ended up watching some others, none of which made my list, but it was nice to kind of catch up on some Jodie Foster movies that I hadn't seen before. She's been in quite a few things. I was surprised by how many movies that she's been in that I haven't seen, and so yeah. It's Stealing Home's another one. Maybe I should check it out. It's obviously one of her best.
Definitely, I would offer a refund, but hard times.
My number 5 is Panic Room, the David Fincher movie. I recently did a rewatch on this earlier this year, and it's great. I mean, Jodie's great. The story's great. It's a little bit over the top. Fincher is really loving his toys in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he is really playing with the way the camera moves and the way this, it goes through stuff.
I was gonna say the way that camera goes through the entire house in that one shot is crazy.
Yeah, at one point it goes like through like a glass pitcher of like lemonade or something. Like, I mean, he's doing some really wacky stuff here. And just, you can tell he's having fun, just like, because it's through the whole movie. It's not like there's just one shot of this. Like, he's doing creative, crazy camera stuff through this whole movie. That's not why I love it. That's fun. That's interesting. It's actually a little bit over the top and a little bit, self-aggrandizing in some ways. But
why do you love it?
I love it because I think the story is just really tight and interesting and compelling. I just think there's a really smart thing going on with some of the ways the story moves through the typical trapped in the house kind of tropes. So I had a really good time with the rewatch. Really kind of bumped it up on my radar as far as the Fincher stuff, and I enjoy Panic Room. I think it's good. So that's my number 5. Andrew, what's your number 5?
Well, like I said, my list is going to be just a bunch of rough, hard to watch movies. Besides one, there's one movie on here where I could go, maybe 2, but for the majority, you're like, ugh, this is brutal. I'm going to start off with The Accused, which is Kelly McGillis and Jodie Foster. Again, very hard to watch. It's about a young woman who is raped in a, I guess you could say, like a dirty biker bar sort of thing.
Bar. Yeah, bar.
Yeah, and she has to, try to convince Kelly McGillis's character to, help try these guys for what they did to her. And it's interesting. Yes, Jodie Foster is giving a really great performance in this, but it's also Kelly McGillis. Yeah, seeing Kelly McGillis go like, is this a winnable case? To is that even important? If this is a winnable case, that whole transition or that moral dilemma of, do I want to tarnish my record, I guess you could say, of being a good lawyer, versus is that worth what this woman went through? To see that if we can get these men to justice, it is a rough movie, but it's also a very powerful movie. So, The Accused.
Go ahead.
It also brings up. It connects to Promising Young Woman in terms of the guys that are being tried. It's sort of like the legal precedent is the fact that they were cheering on the rape. The accountability of your actions when a woman is being abused or when anybody is in this particular situation. So it's kind of like I don't know. I'm not. That part of it is still really, really, really relevant. I actually think the reason why it did not make my list, and I think I'm defending myself from my next frivolous choice on the list. I think
you don't have to defend yourself, man. It's your list.
Oh, you're gonna ask me to defend myself when I say my number 4. Trust me. After The Accused, I feel that precisely the Kelly McGillis character. I feel that Jodie Foster's character is so strong. Like the movie did not. Her story is so strong. The movie did not need. It just feels like it. Like it was some sort of the only way we can get this story financed and made in the studio is to make it like a legal sort of, you know,
courtroom
legal
drama.
a courtroom drama. And we got 2 female leads, and Kelly McGillis from Top Gun. Okay, sure, let's go. Let's get a green. Because at that point, people forget that Jodie Foster had been away for a while, and she was not hot at the box office, or whatever the term you want to make it. You know, I mean, McGillis was the one that got this movie greenlight at Paramount. So I don't know. In terms of performance, definitely one of her best performances. But I feel that it did not make my movie and my list, just because that part of it, the lawyer part of it, feels a little bit contrived.
That's fair.
You're absolutely right. I think it may be Jodie Foster's best performance. I think she's incredible in this movie, and especially what she's going through. The only reason it didn't make my list is because, as intense and traumatic and tough as the material is, and as much as the movie doesn't pull any punches on the material, they go there. The movie itself is so 80s that it's hard to it's almost hard to reconcile the music choices and like some of the stuff that's going on and some of these terrible, you know, moments. There's so much cheese in this movie that didn't need to be there because the material is so powerful. But yeah, and again, I just watched this yesterday, so that's fresh on my mind. But yeah, it's and like you said, the most powerful part of this movie is it's not actually about prosecuting the rapists. It's about prosecuting the people who cheered on the rapists. And you're right, that connects directly to Promising Young Woman and a lot of those themes as well. So yeah, good choice. Good choice. Yep. All right, on to number 4s. What do you got, Juan, that you're going to have to apologize for?
Speaking of cheese, I have Walt Disney's very first adaptation of Freaky Friday, people.
I love this movie.
I like Freaky Friday.
Voice. Yeah,
no, you're good.
Because that's why I laughed. I laughed when you said that, because it is true. We associate Jodie Foster with a lot of important characters, and she picks important themes. But I do like the fact that she is in Taxi Driver, but she's also, when she was a kid actor, she was in this, and this actually highlights her excellent comedic timing. And it is a body swapping movie, but it is about, the reason it made the list is because it's truly about character. You know what I mean? Like the mother-daughter relationship and what it is. I think I appreciate it more as an adult. Like as a kid, I love the fantasy aspect of it. But now I sort of appreciate more like the sort of always the grass is always greener on the other side. We realize what we don't have, but the responsibilities of being an adult and the character sort of and character. Do you listen to me, guys? I'm saying character investigation, talking about Freaky Friday. What the hell is happening? Anyway, it's a lot of fun. And Barbara Harris, like they're equally spectacular, which is what makes the comedy work, because they are taking it. They do take it seriously as a performance piece. So that's why, out of all the Freaky Fridays, this is the one for me.
I cannot argue with that at all. I watched this one yesterday as well, and I think what really stood out to me is just how structurally solid this movie is. It is a slapstick comedy in a lot of ways, but that doesn't like distract from this movie's ability to actually be about something and to actually go somewhere and to tell a story about the misunderstandings that parents and kids have. And I thought it was really well done. So I have no problem with this choice at number 4.
It's surprisingly that you don't see a lot of Hollywood movies do this, but it's like they had an idea before, or they had a motivation for the story before they had the gimmick, you know?
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. That you should actually have something to say before, like, you know, like, hey, let's do this body swap movie. What's it going to be about? I don't know. Just we'll think of something. No, they actually had something in mind beforehand. Yep. Yeah. Aaron.
My number 4 might get trumped. This is where I had Taxi Driver.
Same.
Trump.
You're gonna. So Juan will trump it. You had it at number 4 as well, Andrew. All right. Well, we'll wait for Juan to get to it on his list. So that pulls us on to the number 3s. Juan, what do you got at number 3?
I've got a movie called Carnage. Which I love because it's a sort of, I love when the concept of a movie is meant to be theatrical, which is 4 people in a room, and then it becomes like a spectacle of the characters, which is what this is. This is about how niceties, it's interesting because it's not about social media at all, but you could sort of correlate sort of like the facade of the civil facade that we present when you have to deal with people that you already assigned as different, and then you are forced to for circumstances that I mean, it's not like I'm spoiling it or anything. These people are stuck in a room together, and the gloves come off, and it's like fireworks, and it's literally that's why it's number 3, because I feel that is high wire filming, and the acting is it's spectacular. So it's John C. Reilly and Kate Winslet in the cast as well. So it's really I mean it's one of her best movies, I think.
You guys are just you're being so lovely to me. You just keep naming movies I watched yesterday, and it's just it's giving me a chance to like have all these very strong opinions since I just saw these movies. But no, this is good. This is really good. I think for like many theatrical movies, it does suffer a little bit from like the real time, same room kind of. That's a high wire, man. That is a tough thing to do. These 4 are up to it. They're all great. I actually think Kate Winslet is maybe the best of the 4 in this. I like her character felt so like real to me amongst the 4 of them, but I think they're all doing good stuff here. And the thing I loved most about this movie is just how, and I should say the stage play, I'm sure this is the beauty of how it was written, but it really is about the difference. It is about sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, except for the adults use the words to hurt each other as much as the kid who, whacks a stick across the other kid's face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it juxtaposes, whatever that word is. It compares the two, in such a really beautiful way. I don't know. I thought it was a really smart movie and enjoyed it for the most part. So yeah. Again, another nice choice for your number 3. My number 3, probably going to get trumped. This is where I had Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you guys trump that. And Andrew, what's your number 3?
Well, you're going to trump this one. So
probably.
Yeah, I'm going to go Contact.
Trump. All right. So Juan, we are now to your number 2.
No, my number 2 is Silence of the Lambs, I have to say.
All right.
Yes, it's all trumpet.
So we'll continue to trump. We'll just keep the trumpeting going and get to my number 2. This is where I have Contact.
Okay.
So we can talk about Contact. Andrew, you had it at number 3?
3.
And I had it at number 2. It's really interesting with this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love the sci-fi philosophical aspect to this movie. The idea, it's doing things here that Interstellar tries to do many, many years later. And in doing them,
does it better?
I think it actually does in some ways do it better than Interstellar.
Some ways,
there is certainly. I did another rewatch of this year, earlier this year, and it does have its slow moments and it does have its structural issues. But I am so connected to what Matthew McConaughey is doing in this, what Jodie Foster is doing in this, the conversations that they have about philosophy and all those things, and then where it goes and the sci-fi element of it makes sense to me. Like I really enjoy this movie. I think it's really well done. So I have it at number 2.
Every time I think of Contact, that scene where whenever she's a little girl and she's running down the hallway to go get the medicine and she reaches out her hand and it's a mirror, blows me away every single time. That scene.
Did you watch the videos on how that was shot and how that was done?
Is there actually a video?
Yeah. It's a really neat cinematic magic trick. If you want to watch the making of that moment where she reaches for the mirror.
Contact,
mirror scene. Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
But honestly, you can see Carl Sagan's fingerprints all over this movie. With the authenticity of the science and how SETI, I guess you could say, would react or respond, I think is a better word, to these events happening. You say that The Accused is Jodie Foster's best performance. I actually think Contact is her best performance.
She's great in this. You're not wrong. She was great in this.
The biggest issue I have with this movie is the last 5 minutes, where they throw something in that I absolutely hate. You know, they didn't leave something up for the audience's, I guess you could say, decision of whether or not.
Yeah, they closed something off that could have been open-ended.
And if they had have left it open-ended, I think this movie would go down as one of the best. But that simple act, kind of like how Edge of Tomorrow, the ending of that movie just makes you go, "Oh, but the rest of the movie is so good. Why did you do that?" Not to that extreme, but I really was disappointed with the way they decided to tie the bow off for this movie.
Sure.
I think we've had this discussion before. Whenever, because this was one of my list of shame movies back whenever we were doing that.
Yeah.
That we talked about this. I think you and I, we kind of disagreed on the Matthew McConaughey, not the performance, but actually the motivation of that character and how I think he goes back and forth in it. Don't get me wrong. I think that his character is very important. Because having McConaughey come in and be the philosophical, the theological, I guess is the better way to say it, the theological voice in this movie is not only fascinating, but it's also important. Because without him, this movie would just be very ironically preachy about its science, but he is bringing something to this movie to where faith is something that doesn't have to be religious, I guess you could say. I think this movie is brilliant, and for me, it is Jodie Foster's best performance.
Nice. All right, I think then that brings us to your number 2, Andrew. Is that right?
Is it? Juan, have you given your number 2 yet?
My number, I trumped Silence of the Lambs, but because that one's my number 2.
Oh, okay. So my number 2 is probably going to get trumped. I'm going to go with Inside Man.
Yeah, I'll trump you for that. All right, Juan, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is Taxi Driver.
There you go. I had it at number 4. Andrew had it at
number 4.
Number 4, and you had it at number 1. Talk about it.
You guys are crazy.
I will say this before you get into.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking
to me.
I am talking to you.
Juan, you're gonna cringe when I say this. The first time I saw Taxi Driver, I may have just been too young, but I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. When I rewatched it, I understood more what this movie was trying to say, and the subtext of this movie became way more prevalent once I had a greater mind to understand what it was saying. It is a brilliant movie. It is a very brilliant movie, and I do not begrudge you for having it at your number 1.
Of course not.
It's just brilliant filmmaking, I have to say, and sort of the expressionistic aspect of how he's able to the cinematic embodiment of whatever's going on in that head of that person, and sort of the grind of where he's at. It's just and then also the sort of how in another movie the Jodie Foster character would be, I like the fact that we get sort of a cynical perspective of what that trope would be, like that he feels he needs to save her, but that character is not interested in being saved at all. It's sort of a dose of acidness that just makes it even more dark and impactful. And it's another Scorsese exploration of sort of violence. In a very, I mean, this sounds cliche because it is. It's just cinematic. You know what I mean? I also watched it at a very, not a very young age, but I mean, it's the sort of movie I had to go. I kept thinking about. Like, I knew I hadn't understood everything that was being that I had seen, but I kept thinking about it. And I feel that when you watch it now, even though you might get certain things, it's still able to get under your skin. It's just such a masterful use of the medium.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. One of the movies I watched yesterday was Scorsese's movie right before this one that also has Jodie Foster in it, which is Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Yep.
And which kind of blew my mind. It was like a Scorsese movie. I would never have pictured this to have been the kind of movie that Scorsese would make. I mean, it basically becomes a pilot episode for the TV show Alice.
Alice was based on this movie, you know.
Right?
You know
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I found all that interesting. But yeah, I think Scorsese is doing something here that is way ahead of its time and exploring this kind of character study. This is the same character study, obviously, we're doing in Joker, or some of these other movies that come out about kind of that anarchist mindset. And he's doing it in the mid-70s and drawing attention to a certain type of person that I don't think the movies had ever really put front and center like that before. And so yeah, I think there's some really interesting things going on here.
I think there's a fear of making a movie about a character like this because
Sure.
you would have to walk a very fine line to make it not seem like you're a proponent or advocating for a character like this. Instead of shining a light and saying there are people out there like this, it could very easily lean into look how cool this guy is.
Well, and there's certainly a segment of society that takes these movies like that too.
Yes,
And,
I'm not saying that there are that there aren't, but it's just that it can be very difficult, I imagine, to make a movie to where the mass majority of people would come away looking like that. And I think that is kind of where I didn't fall in this category, but I think that's where Joker fell short, because I think that a lot of people did come away with thinking of how cool the Joker is. But I think that there's just a nostalgia for that character as opposed to it being a unique, original person, that it made it more difficult for people to go, oh, the Joker's awesome, man. Let's go watch a movie about the Joker. But whenever you really watch that movie, I don't think that is really what the reason for that story to be told was. Exactly the same here. This movie, you're not supposed to like this guy. You're supposed to try and understand a bad word, because this movie's like, why is this guy doing the thing he's doing, and you're wanting to know why. I don't know because understand and empathize can sometimes get intertwined, but I don't think that you're trying to empathize with this character. You're just trying to understand him.
I feel that's why part of the power of this movie, besides the brilliant filmmaking, is that we're talking in a moment in the 70s where sort of the crazies were able to infiltrate the studios. Like, the studios did not know yet what, this was, they hadn't figured out the summer blockbuster, so they gave all these directors. So the script is not interested in your empathy or understanding. It just wants, it's like a deep dive into the malice of this character, and it's up to you to decide how you feel about it, which is very grown up and very it doesn't happen. You have, everything needs to be chopped up and served and be labeled, and this movie doesn't do that, and that's why it's even more powerful now, where we sort of need all these boundaries and assign all these rules to storytelling.
Yep. All right, my number one is Inside Man. Andrew, that was your number two, I believe.
Yeah.
We've talked about this movie even recently in a Best Ever Challenge.
Yeah, best Denzel Washington movies, wasn't it? I think we both had it at number one. I think we did.
We may have both had it at number one. And during that week, I had rewatched it, and I continue to stand by just how brilliant this movie is, and Spike has done an incredible job in this thing. I continue to be really impressed by the magic trick of the whole thing. I think he brilliantly layers in obvious clues to something you still don't necessarily pick up, and I just think it's brilliantly structured. I think the performances are great. It's just one of the best heist movies of all time.
It is the best heist movie of all time. It's
great. It's just a great film, and it is my number one.
Yeah. I think I said this last time. I like it more than the Ocean movies because it's a heist movie that seems viable. That they're not spending $3 million to make $5 million. You know, they're not it's not, you know, giant elaborate, you know, structures that they build to try and fool everybody. It's more plausible. And I don't think I talked about how good Clive Owen was in last week or last time we talked about this. Just how calm and sure of himself he is, you know, and that really because in any other hands, that Denzel Washington performance would make another, I guess you could say, burglar or robber nervous. But the fact that he still remains calm with how charismatic Denzel Washington is makes you so sure he's going to get away with this because he has the answer to everything. And on top of all that, you have this incredibly fascinating side plot with Jodie Foster and Christopher Plummer, and you are just like, what? It's icing on the cake. If that story with her wasn't in this movie, I think it would be a great movie. But with it, I think it's a phenomenal, brilliant movie because it adds so many other layers to the story. It adds race. It adds especially race in this movie. It adds this story of trust and truth and who you can actually believe in and stuff like that. It's such a good movie. I do not for one second begrudge you for having it at your number one, although you're both wrong because my number one is Silence of the Lambs, one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Jonathan Demme, the way he shoots this movie, the way he has like full on like staring at the camera shots makes some of those scenes, especially with Anthony Hopkins, so chilling. Because it'll you know, you have the Farber beans and the Chianti scene, but then it'll cut immediately to Jodie Foster, and you can just see how she just like wants to pull away from this guy, but she can't. I heard so much about this movie before I actually saw it that I was surprised to know that Hannibal Lecter wasn't the first time I saw it anyway, wasn't the villain. I mean, yes, he is a villain, but he's not the main antagonist. Yeah, he's not the antagonist. It's Buffalo Bill. And I was like so confused when I was first watching it. I was like, am I watching the wrong movie? Is this like a sequel or something? Like he's already in jail. What's going on? Should I go back and watch one where he wasn't, you know? And but then I realized that he is the sending in a I forget the analogy, but it's like if you want to catch I'll just throw out animals, a snake, you got to send in another snake to like get it or something like that. Like it's the you need evil to catch evil sort of
fight
thing.
Fire with fire kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. And the way again, this movie has great subtext where you have Jodie Foster, who's, you know, a young up and comer, but she has to deal with wherever she goes misogyny. She has to deal with all these people demeaning her, not just because of her gender, but also her youth and her physical stature. She's very small compared to everybody else. Like, I think the movie starts off like after she's running, she gets in the elevator with all those guys, and you only see after their shoulders because she's so tiny.
It's the last credit. I think it holds the credit of the director, but it's the last shot of before the credits go out.
Yeah. And it makes you. Jonathan Demme does a really good job of making you feel like you are meek because we know because we know we have the knowledge of, you know, the audience, that she's not meek or, you know, scared or, you know, timid or anything like that. We know she's going to be awesome, but the movie does a really good job of making you feel like that's how possibly she feels about herself, you know, and that not only is she trying to solve this case throughout the movie, but she's also trying to prove herself. Yes, Jodie Foster's great. Yes, Anthony Hopkins gives one of the most famous performances of all time. And we also got to throw out some love for Buffalo Bill. I forget his real name. It's
Ted Levine, I think.
Yep, that's it.
Right.
Yep, Ted Levine. What a creepy character. Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you covered pretty much all of it. I don't know that I have a lot to say other than it is Jonathan Demme, right? Isn't
Jonathan Demme. Yeah.
Demme. Yeah.
Was it saying Dim?
Yeah.
I may have been saying Dim instead of Demme.
Yeah.
No, it's Hopkins is on screen for 17 minutes, which is mind blowing. And speaking to, I was actually because it was the anniversary of this film, the 30th anniversary, because it came out on Valentine's Day, and I was actually
really?
Yeah, it came out on Valentine's Day, 1991. And because movies open in Puerto Rico a day before, movies open here in Puerto Rico on Friday. I actually saw it on Thursday, February 13th, opening, like first showing. I went to I went to this movie, and the brilliance of it is, it's like like you said, because this is something Deb does in every movie, which I quickly bothered my wife. I was like, hey, look, he looking at the camera, like he does it in Married to the Mob, and he does it in Philadelphia when everybody takes a stand. But with this one, the reason, like, he literally, Hopkins gets inside your head, because when he does that POV and he's just standing there, he's literally talking to you, the audience, and you have been told you don't want Hannibal Lecter in your head, and he's fucking in your head. Sorry, PG-13, you'll bleep me out later. I just got a little bit overexcited here.
Well,
because it's brilliant. It's freaking brilliant. Sorry, I apologize.
You're good.
Scott Glenn does this thing where we know Scott Glenn is this really stoic, powerful guy, but at the beginning of the movie, you see that he is scared of Hannibal Lecter as Jack Crawford, and just you're like, whoa, if Scott Glenn is scared of this guy, how am I supposed to react to him? You know? No,
but it's also a really interesting, also like women in a world of men, because the Scott Glenn character doesn't get away scot free. Sorry for the pun. Wasn't intentional.
We do not apologize for puns around here.
It's one expletive and one pun in a row. Like that, I think I'm exceeding my stay in this podcast. Anyway, because he sends her as bait. Like he literally baits. He knows he's sending this young female unprepared into the mouth of the devil, and he knows what he's doing. He's actually seducing Lecter through the Jodie Foster character in a way. But it's also what makes the movie transcend that part of it, is sort of the hero's journey. Like, she doesn't think, which is what you were mentioning, she might not thought that she was a hero when she goes down there, but she definitely graduates to that level, you know, when she literally gets thrown in the pit with the other victims. So it's just, there's some very smart storytelling there that it all gets brilliantly structured in this movie. So, yeah.
Fun fact is that Anthony Hopkins, you said, is on screen for 17 minutes. That is the shortest amount of time a character is on screen until Mahershala Ali, that a character won for Best Supporting Actor. Shortest time on screen. Another thing that I just now realized, and it's one of those. Do you ever have a moment where like you realize something, but you've known it all along, kind of a thing?
Sure.
Where, the example is, I just now realized that I've known all along, is that, yes, Hannibal Lecter eats people in a literal sense, but also in a metaphorical sense, in the fact that he eats you for who you are. Like, this entire movie, he's eating Claire Starling, you know, or Clarice Starling. He's eating who she is. He's devouring what makes her her. Like whenever she's finally talking about the lambs, you know, and being slaughtered and stuff, you just see in his eyes like he is just enjoying this meal of, like, it's like his dessert, and he's like, oh, thank you. Like whenever she gets done and he says thank you, it's like his way of saying I'm full, you know. I've had my full fill. What a happy, delightful movie fun for the whole family.
It's all wonderful.
For Valentine's.
For Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. The chat does correct us. He won for best lead performance.
Yeah, he won lead. Yeah, he won lead.
What?
Crazy. He won best lead actor
that's
being in a movie for
17
minutes.
That's why I brought it up, because it's 17 minutes, but he was definitely a lead in the movie.
Yeah.
Because he is in our heads. Even when he's not on screen, Hannibal is there. So it's like, that's why we feel his presence throughout the whole movie, which is why it was never argued. Like, there's all these discussions about who gets to go to supporting. And when they campaigned for Hopkins for lead, there was no question. Like, nobody protested. They did the whole 17 minutes, like, probably, like, I don't know, like 10 years ago. Like, nobody spoke to that at the time. It wasn't a controversy or anything.
Well, guys, I just got to say that my number one did win Best Picture. Aaron, yours wasn't even nominated, and Taxi Driver didn't win. So
didn't win. And if you want to gloat, not only did it win Best Picture, it's one of the few movies that swept all major categories, because it won Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and then Best Screenplay Adaptation. And there's very, very few that had swept all those major categories.
I think what it means at the end of the day is everybody should trust your opinion on the Mauritanian more than ours. I think is
that's exactly the Mauritanian is just as good as Silence of the Lambs.
Listen, I don't know.
Wait a minute. You're gonna make me curse again. What are you saying?
Honorable mentions. I have a couple. Candle Shoe. I don't know if you guys ever saw the Disney movie. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
She did good with her Disney run. I have to say, she did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, she really is a really interesting child, legit child star actress, and then legit adult star actress as well. So, Candle Shoe, Maverick, I thought was worth mentioning, and Flight Plan I would mention as well as other good movies that Jodie Foster's in. Andrew, did you have any other honorable mentions?
These are movies I enjoyed. I don't know if they're good. They're probably not good, but I had fun watching them. Elysium, it's not a good movie, but it's entertaining. Artemis Fowl, it's unique and interesting. Not
you mean
a good
Hotel
movie.
Artemis? You mean Hotel Artemis?
What did I'd say Artemis Fowl, didn't I? Yeah, Hotel Artemis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Artemis Fowl is just straight up a bad movie. She's not in that movie, but I have to let people know Artemis Fowl is a horrible, horrible movie. And then one more that I wanted to throw out.
It's better than the Mauritanian.
Them are fighting words. I'll go with The Beaver. It's a stupid movie, but I had fun watching it.
She directed that one.
She also directed that one too.
Yeah, I am going to mention the one she also directed, which is actually currently on HBO Max if you haven't seen it, and it came out the same year that Silence of the Lambs came out. As Little Man Tate is actually her first feature. It's a very interesting movie that she directed. So I'm going to throw that out. And I'm also going to throw out Foxes, which is when she sort of left Disney behind and worked with Adrian Lin. It was sort of a transitional period from child to adult.
Yeah. Very nice. Well, there you go. There's the best ever Jodie Foster movies. Let's finish out with our buried treasure, guys. Andrew, why don't you go first? What's your buried treasure for this week?
Oh, man. There's a new show out starring Alan Tudyk that everybody needs to start watching called Resident Alien. This show is hilarious. It is so good. Alan Tudyk he's just one of the funniest people on the planet. And the way that he becomes this character, the way he performs, it's just so perfect. This is a show that can be enjoyed by everybody because there's a side plot with him and this like 10-year-old kid that is so fun because he's supposed to be this insanely brilliant alien, and he looks like a human to everybody else except for this 10-year-old kid who can actually see what he looks like. And it's so good because to everybody else he's brilliant, but this little kid calls him out on some stupid stuff, and it really gets under his skin. Like there's a line in the show where he's like, "I'm gonna shout from the highest tower in town that you're crazy," And then the kid's like, there are no towers in this town. You're an idiot. You thought towers were in this town. And he's like, I'm not an idiot. I was just seeing if you thought that there were towers in town. It's stupid stuff like that that really makes the show beautiful. The side characters in this, besides Alan Tudyk, are all great. It is so funny. Everybody needs to watch it.
I watched all the episodes of that this week, so I am right there with you. I think the show is great, and I, as well as a Tudyk fan, am glad to see him, you know, doing some fun stuff, some interesting stuff. So yeah, check it out. Resident Alien really is funny. It's Sci-Fi Channel, I believe, is where it is. And
you can also watch it on Peacock.
No, you definitely sold it. I am very interested in it.
It's really funny. It's
fun.
really clever and funny, and it's good stuff.
I like him. I like him a lot. So yeah, definitely writing that one down.
Speaking of great kid performances, fun kid performances, although this is not a comedy, I wanted to mention For My Buried Treasure, Palmer. This is out on Apple TV Plus. Yep. And we have not reviewed it on the show, but I did want to mention that I did see it, and Justin Timberlake stars. I think Timberlake is great in this. I really do think he's a good actor, but I really believe the star in this is Ryder Allen, the kid. He is so perfect in this movie, and I think he really sells the themes and message of this movie in a way that elevates the material. This is a pretty basic movie in a lot of ways. It works. It definitely worked on me, but I think one of the main reasons is how much I love this kid. So yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of praise for his performance.
He's nominated for the Critics' Choice Awards of Best Young Performer. I'm glad, because he's sort of like any other year he might have gotten a little bit more love than just that nomination. And I cannot stand Timberlake personally, but he is very good as a performer. So it's a tribute to how good he is that I am agreeing with you. Like, yeah, he's really good. He's really good in this. And this is directed by Fisher Stevens, which a lot of people might just remember him as the Indian guy in the Short Circuit movies, or from
man, let's not remember him as that. That is
or from Lost. He was also in Lost. He was
there. We go. Now we're getting better.
He was also in My Science Project. He's also an Academy Award winner for a short documentary. And he dated Michelle Pfeiffer in the 90s, which is why I hate him. But, it's fine. He does really good.
Yeah. All right, finish this off. Juan, what's your buried treasure?
Well, my segue into hating Fisher Stevens because he dated Michelle Pfeiffer, it is a Michelle Pfeiffer movie called Where is Kira? It debuted in Sundance in 2017. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because there is a lot of... It's kind of hard for somebody who reached the stature of star. Like, there's a lot of, she's a very underrated actress. I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me. And she gives a fantastic performance in this. It's her first sort of independent movie that she does. She plays... It's kind of funny because it sort of correlates with French Exit, which is a movie that they're chatting about her for awards this year, and it's a movie about a woman who is living with her mother and had no way of sustaining herself, and then when her mother dies, she spirals even darker. So the photography is phenomenal, and it clearly illustrates why she was born to be in front of the camera. So I don't know if either of you have had the opportunity. It's a very, 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 very dark, bleak drama, but she's fantastic in it. So I just I don't know. As somebody who's been following her career since 1982 in Grease 2, it's sort of like this weekend the internet went nuts over something that from Batman Returns. I just feel like a lot of people had not been paying attention to how consistently great she's been in a lot of stuff. So that's why I decided to throw it out there in the buried treasure.
Hey, we're all about the Michelle Pfeiffer love here. She does incredible work, and I think she is continuously underrated, and I don't know why. I don't know if there just hasn't hit with a lot of people, but
I just feel that that it never fails, which actually bothers me. Somebody always has to bring up how beautiful she is. You know what I mean?
Right.
And everybody's just freaking distracted by that when she's actually That doesn't happen to Julianne Moore. It doesn't happen to a lot of other actresses, but I don't know why. It sort of seems to be like the thing that people can't just get past. And she confines like people were like, a journalist was like mentioning, oh my God, like you followed up Scarface with Married to the Mob, which is not true. Actually, there's a solid 6 years between those two movies. Scarface is in 1983. And Married to the Mob is 88, which is another Jonathan Demme movie. That it's a fantastic movie. But in between those, there was like Lady Hawk, Into the Night. There were Witches of Eastwick, and there's all different characters. So yeah, she's her ability to confine expectations is just very impressive.
Well, there you go. Where is Kyra? Do you know if it's streaming anywhere or available to watch, or how would you go about finding it? Do you think?
I think you can rent it. I think you can rent it. I don't. It's not streaming, but you can definitely rent it where you buy and rent movies.
All right. Well, there you go. There's a buried treasure. Well, we did it, guys. Congratulations.
Woo!
We set out on the journey with the destination of doing a podcast in mind, but you know what? That wasn't really what it was all about. It was all about the moments within. The journey itself is what this podcast was all about. Thank you so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out with us again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing both the video and audio shows.
Bye, Phil.
Woo! Thanks to Drew for putting together the graphics for the video show.
Golf clap.
And thank you to Juan for hanging out with us again. Juan, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure, even though I broke some rules this time around, but you know.
You're fine. Hey, if you PG-13 movies get one F word, so hey, you know.
I know. Hey.
We're still good. Yeah, tell us a little bit about where people can find you.
Well, now I have a very complicated, long Hispanic last name, but actually it's easier now because in my Twitter handle you can find me by Juan Division, Juan Division, which is totally easy to find me. And then I can throw you links to all the interviews and Instagram and all the fun stuff that I am doing every week, which I feel very grateful for.
Search for a WandaVision on Twitter, or if you're watching the live show right now, the Twitter address is in front of you. Let us also thank the amazing Sif Pop members for supporting this. Support starts at $3 a month. You get access to all the bonus episodes, as well as some other fun perks. You can find out more at patreon.com/SifPop. Lots of ways you can interact with the podcast. You can leave a comment. You can rate it. You can also leave a review, whether that's at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Or you can email us, feedback@siftpop.com, if you have any questions for us or anything you want to send to us. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too, so make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than saying the word penguin if you're Benedict Cumberbatch. We will be back next week. I think we'll be reviewing Cherry. I think that drops next week, as well as maybe we're going to take a look at Barb and Star finally on the show. So those will possibly be the two reviews next week. Either way, we will see you then. Bye. Thank you, live chat. A little love for Juan in the chat on Facebook.
Yeah, he's. I know him. I shared it. I shared it on my Facebook before we started, so that's why I think.
Oh, nice. Very, very cool. And Gesgen Marty says Cumberbatch's accent is pitch perfect because the coach Stewart speaks exactly like that. So
there we go.
Take that, guys.
More backup.
See how much we know.
That's right. Let's see. Jay Bourgeois says, I haven't seen Stealing Home, but as far as some underrated or underseen films, I remember liking The Beaver, which we talked about a little bit, and The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, which I haven't seen. I almost watched that today. I haven't seen
that's hard to find now. I do have it on DVD. It's hard to track down.
You know, a lot of the ones I track down, and just as a tip for people, if something is not streaming, which is the case a lot of times, if you have a library card, you can attach it to an app called Hoopla, and there is lots of free stuff there because basically you're checking it out from the library, but digitally. So I watched Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore through Hoopla.
Nice.
I watched another one through Hoopla. So yeah, just a heads up there. If you have a library card, they connect to your local library, and then it's just in your app store on your phone or on your TV or whatever, and you can watch stuff. So there you go. Thank you to our video hanger outers as well. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch you next time. Peace out, peoples.
Bye.
Bye.